Hello, my name is Catherine Porter. Today I will be presenting on leading a gap during a technology adoption in schools through the use of Rogers' diffusion of innovation, as well as modeling Christ-like leadership. The purpose of this presentation is to give reasons and biblical examples for how we can model Christ as leaders who can effectively bridge the gap between groups of adopters, innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. Over the next several slides, I will explain each of these groups and how we as leaders can engage each of them faithfully and effectively. According to Rogers 2003, there are 5 adopter categories that describe how individuals typically engage with new ideas. Innovators are approximately 2.5% of the population. They are venturesome risk takers who are often financially well and have a high tolerance for uncertainty. All early adopters represent about 13.5%. Opinion leaders who are well liked by their peers and have the most direct influence on the decisions of others. The early majority, about 34%, are deliberate. They typically adopt after they see clear evidence that something works. Late majorities are also about 34% and are more skeptical. They usually adopt because of social pressure or out of necessity. Finally, laggards are about 16%. They are tradition-bound, resisting some change until the very end. Rogers' 5 adopter categories help us as leaders design inclusive approaches that reach each category where they are in the adoption process. When leading change in schools, I would first rely on the innovators to pilot new ideas and help provide feedback. Next, I would empower early adopters to mentor and influence others. I would involve the early majority, finally, after I see evidence of success and momentum. Together, these groups create the foundation for change. Innovators provide trial data, early adopters build that credibility, and early majority brings momentum. We see a biblical example of this in Mark 3:14. Jesus first invested in his disciples, equipping them with trust and training before sending them out to spread his message. Howard and colleagues founded in 2021 that in the field of education, early adopters who are well prepared are able to effectively model digital competency for their peers. This reflects the same principle of equipping leaders first, then expanding adoption. The late majority often only adopt after they see a large portion of their peers succeed. Laggards, by contrast, are resistant last and only when absolutely necessary. If I were to work with these groups, my leadership approach would be to focus on patience, providing strong evidence, peer mentorship, and rational trust. We see a model of this in John chapter 20, verses 27 through 29. When Thomas doubted the resurrection, Jesus did not condemn him. Instead, he offered patience and the proof Thomas needed to believe. Van Houten and colleagues in 2023 found a similar theme in their study of change in organizations. They showed that when systems build readiness and provide structures of support, even the most reluctant groups eventually come on board. This example reminds us that with compassion and patience, we can bring even the most resistant adopters along in the process. As Christian leaders, we are called to model Christ in the way we lead. Christ led with humility, patience, and love. In John 13, verses 14 and 15, Jesus demonstrated servant leadership by washing his disciples' feet, showing that true leadership comes through service. And then in 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul tells believers to follow by example, as I follow the example of Christ. For us as leaders, this means our leadership should not only create effective change, but it should also be rooted in compassion and care for others. When we model Christ in leadership, we build rational trust, we cultivate a servant culture, and we ensure that the changes we make are both lasting and compassionate. Here are the references that informed my presentation today. We looked at Howard Tenured Ma and Yang of 2021 through Computers in Education. And then the textbook is Rogers 2003, Diffusion of Innovations, which is where the model that we are discussing throughout this PowerPoint comes from. And then we have the Holy Bible, and then Van Houten and colleagues of 2023. These sources provided both the theoretical and biblical foundation for this work. Thank you for listening to my presentation on Christ-like leadership in technology adoption. By understanding the adopter category, planning strategically, and modeling Christ, we can bridge gaps and lead change that is both effective and compassionate. Thank you.